Hello, Miriam E here. I love the fact that you've joined me today. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to listen to my poetry and to hear what I have to say. I'm reading today from my recently released book, Phoenix. I encourage you to check out the previous videos that I've released just recently, exploring some other poems as well, where I talk a little bit more about my journey and what the book is about. But in short, Phoenix is an abstract poetry exploration that acknowledges and faces the hard stuff, and I hope shows how I have personally experienced healing in my life. It's not a spiritual book, it is a collection of abstractly constructed poetry. So today, without further ado, I would like to read another one that has quite a visual component to it. It's actually more visual than wordy, and I'm going to show you what it looks like before I read it, because the reading is going to be very short. But this poem is called Gatekeeper, and I'm going to show it to you, read you the line, and then explain the premise behind it. Are you ready? You're ready. Okay. So this is Gatekeeper. Hopefully you can see that. And don't panic, it is actually blurrier at the top than it is at the bottom. So you see there. So, as I think you can see, there are words that are bolded, right? And if you take a close look, you can see that it actually runs up in a line, right? So it just simply says, I am my mind's gatekeeper. But when you sit and look at the poem and read it, and it's actually best to read it from the bottom up. You can go either way. It's just easier to read it from the bottom up. I am my mind's gatekeeper. 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 I hope I read that correctly, but I'm sure you're intelligent enough to get the gist of it. This poem came about purely because of a recognition that there is no other person responsible for what happens in here but this little chickadee right here. I'll say that again. No one is responsible for what happens in here except this person here. Now, that might seem very simple and perhaps to some people quite matter of fact, and why are we even discussing this topic? But if you've ever experienced any season in your life where you feel out of control and all of the things going on around you are swirling and difficult to grab hold of, it's very easy to start placing the blame on everything that's going on around. For example, craziness in the family, as in, like, that's a bad choice of words, but like things like someone breaking their leg, and not being able to go to school or work or whatever, and the ensuing domino effect that has on the household. It creates an environment that's external to here, right? That you can't really control that much. But what we can control is in here. And sometimes, from my own experience, it's easy to use all of the external things as the reasons for why I'm not coping internally. I might be really, really stressed by the fact that this person has broken their leg, and because it's put extra workload on me, or it has created an environment where I have to think through things much sooner in order to get them done, yada, yada, yada. But the basic idea is the chaos that's external influences what's going on inside, for sure, no doubt. but it doesn't have control over what's going on inside. It can't. It just can't. I am the only one who has control over that. And ironically, this thinking that's going on in my head controls the thinking that's going on in my head. I've just realized that. See, this is what happens to writers. You don't actually always realize what it is you've written until you start to think about it outside of having written it. Another cyclical irony, I think. So I am my mind's gatekeeper. Everything that comes into my mind is my choice. Today, for example, I heard a statistic. For anybody who's watching this post 2020, we're currently going through the coronavirus global pandemic, and it's really quite awful. It's really, really awful what the things that are going on around in the world. And today I heard a statistic of one of the countries and the number of deaths that they are anticipating over the next few months. And it nearly undid me. Like, I just sat at the kitchen table and I had a little moment, I had a little cry. And in the past, that would have derailed the rest of the day. When I couldn't tap into my own capacity to discipline my mind and to think things through and to manage the emotional response to that external stimuli, it would derail my day. In fact, it could even derail the rest of the week. It's Wednesday today. It could be Monday before I feel like I can regroup. Since learning learning that it is my responsibility, since discovering that it is my responsibility to safeguard what is in my mind, I've worked hard to develop resilience and to develop a bit of a strategy where I use a combination of scripture and mindfulness and discipline to keep myself in a place where that kind of stimuli can hit me, and it might disrupt me for a few moments. It might disrupt me for an hour, but at some point I'm going to turn around to myself and say, we're done with that now. Because at the moment, in that particular scenario, I have no control over what is happening in that country. None. Absolutely none. I'm completely and utterly without influence in that country. I'm incredibly grateful that I'm not living in that scenario right now, and I'm pretty safe where I am. But I have no control over what's going on there, right? I can't control the fact that I now know that information either, because I know it. Once you know something, you can't unknow it. But I can control what happens here and what happens here, and therefore what happens from that. My external response to that is my responsibility. So this poem, albeit one line, is what I would even go as far as to say is a mantra for me. Because, and this is, for those who are interested, there is a scripture in Romans 12, which talks about disciplining the mind. And those two things go hand in hand for me. It is my job to discipline my mind. It is my job to build up my neural pathways, my job to eat well, to exercise, to look after my mind, to spend time meditating on, for me, on scripture. It might be something else for you, to meditate on the world around me, to be mindful of the world around me and the people in my life. All of these things are really integral to keeping this in here healthy and well and stable and disciplined and capable. So even though today I had that experience, I'm now able to use that as an example of how important it is for us to take hold of our responsibility to look after our own thinking. So not necessarily a usual kind of poem, I don't think, but one that's really integral for me. And interestingly enough too, just for a bit of anecdotal bookishness, this particular piece comes in the scene 4 of the book. The book is set up in kind of like a play. So there's 3 parts and 6 scenes. And this part is called The Convergence. And the poems within this part are very much about the realignment, coming in together and converging ideas, converging disparate thoughts and bringing them into line with healthier thoughts and points of view. So that particular poem is definitely a milestone in my journey. And I can see how it has then translated itself into a very practical thing in my life. So if you are ever encouraged to write, don't ever be afraid to write something that's simple. I don't know who I'm talking to that might need to hear that right now, but write the simple things. Don't feel the need to push them further than what you originally feel is the thing that you've just written. And it could be 1 sentence, it could be 100 words, it could be 1,000, it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say here to anyone who may feel that they resonate with this is just write the sentence and see what happens. Breathe on that sentence, marinate in it, meditate on it, whatever kind of way you want to do it, but spend some time with it, because maybe when you write that sentence, it's saying something back to you that is really important for your own development and journey. Thank you so much for listening and watching my video. Thank you for taking the time. I love feedback, so please feel free to give me some feedback on anything. If you'd like me to read poems from other people, for example, I'm happy to do that. You can check out more at miriammiles.com, and I'm all over social media, so come and say hi. Thanks so much.